Have you got the pop-up that says? Yeah. It's loading. Great. Hello, everyone. If you're just joining us, this is Insight Outreach's August webinar. So we're really glad to have you all with us. And I'm sure more people will be joining as we kind of get along and get started. So purpose of today's session is really, as the title suggests, more than Oxbridge. So we want to expand the discussion around kind of universities and application to more course options beyond Oxbridge. So some of the things that we'll talk about today are university courses at other Russell Group universities. And as you can see around me are other students who have kind of at those universities. And really, this will be an open kind of Q&A panel session. So each of our speakers is going to talk about their university experience at a Russell Group uni. And it's really going to give you that perspective from multiple perspectives, so you can get a kind of holistic view. And if there's anything that you want our speakers to talk about that we didn't mention, that's kind of what the Q&A function is. So we'll be keeping an eye on the chat and allow everyone to ask questions that way. So yeah, that's how kind of the session will run. Some of you might not know who I am. My name is Osman. I was an OMS student back in 2018, which seems like quite a while ago now. But OMS really helped me with kind of applying to university. So my mentor studied history, really helped me with like drafting my personal statement and some of those skills which have come in that have been really useful. And I'm currently studying history at the University of Warwick, going into my final year now. So after the last year being online, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm sure some of our other panelists will talk about that a bit as well. But yeah, in terms of my kind of career interests, I'm kind of, I was lucky enough to have a summer internship as well. So most recently I had one with HBC over the summer, and that was a good experience for me. And I'm kind of looking to continue that to go back to campus as well. So yeah, that's a brief bit about me. And just to introduce some of our speakers, we'll have, as you can see on the screen, Gadiel, Harriet, Ariaman, and Thomas, and they'll each be talking about a different aspect of their university experience. And they were all involved with Insight Outreach, either on the OMS or on social impact internships. So without further ado now, I'll pass on to our first panelist, Gadiel, who's going to talk a bit about the work and that transition from the work you do at A-level and at school to that which you do at university. So over to you, Gadiel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gadiel, as Osman said, and I was also a previous student on the OMS program. So I think, and now I'm trying to work it out. I think it was a year ago, 2019 to 2020. So yeah, currently I'm at University of Warwick as well, but I'm studying engineering, and I'm just finished my first year, going on to the second year. So for me, my A levels, the A levels I picked were maths, physics, and chemistry. I did do further maths earlier, but then I dropped it later on. But yeah, so those are my three A levels, and I find going into work, having done those A levels and doing a general engineering course was good. Even though I did do three, and it was suggested to do further maths on top, I think the maths that they teach you in the first year does help you get into it. So if you are thinking about doing engineering, yeah, do further maths, but also don't panic if you haven't done further maths as well. And yeah, also talking about a bit about some of the tasks you do, so the research tasks and stuff like that. So going to university, I wasn't great at research. I thought I was until I had my first task and I realized I wasn't amazing at research. But one of the things I think is quite helpful is that you get like for me I got like a personal tutor, and I went back to her and asked how to research, and like you can see that there are library resources and they're really good. So yeah, that's just a bit about the work. So the work isn't a big step from A levels to first year. They sort of ease you into it, except for the fact that you will get like a lot of, for me I had a lot of lectures that it got used to. I had to get used to because like I just didn't expect it. For other people I know at Warwick, doing different courses, they didn't get as many lectures to begin with. But as the year went on, we got less work and they got more work, so that was good. So yeah, that's how the workload was.
Great, thank you, Gadiel. Just want to ask a bit as well, especially because a lot of your university experience was online. So how did you kind of manage that, having that work to do, but in an online setting? So, did you find it harder to kind of reach out to some of your tutors, when you needed a question, or were you tired of kind of writing emails and you wish you could see them in person? How was that? How was that aspect of the workload like?
I'd say it was quite difficult because everything was online, but I tried as much as I could to go in person because they had drop-in sessions and stuff like that. So there were also online Q&As. So definitely go to those. At first I thought maybe I don't need to, but the more you go to, the more you get used to, and like you don't miss, especially if you don't have a question, questions that come up from last week, you might have that this week or a similar sort of question. So if you do go to those online Q&A sessions, and always just like drop an email, as you said, maybe have like a specific draft email template to send, so it's a bit quicker. That was something that was helpful for me. But I'd say from yeah, it was difficult, but I think being able to adapt and using Zoom, being able to use Zoom well is a good tip. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, I can agree with that one. And I think a lot of people watching might not kind of know what university teaching is like. So can you talk a bit about kind of like what a seminar is, what kind of a tutorial is, if you have that, and I guess what the difference is to like a class you might have at A level.
So well, the biggest difference is like a class in A level, you'd have like 20 students maybe, but then when you have lectures, you have hundreds of people, and although I haven't experienced the lecture yet, just because of COVID and everything, but you get Zoom calls and you get loads of people in in for those. So there were some online live lectures I had, but most of them were recorded. And yeah, it's less personal, I'd say. But then that's why you have your seminars and tutorials. I don't think I had seminars, but I did have tutorials. So basically, what would happen is that there'll be four of us, and we'd have like a tutor, and then we just discuss like maths problems and questions we had from the week. But yeah, so that's
Okay, no, thanks for that perspective. And yeah, as I went to Warwick as well, yeah, I can also attest to the online learning and how that was different as well. So yeah, no, thanks for talking a bit about the work. I'll move on now to Harriet, who can talk a bit about some of the societies at university and how that differs to kind of the stuff that you might expect in secondary school. So over to you, Harriet.
Yeah, so as Osman said, I'll be talking about the societies at university, but I'll just introduce a little bit of my background first because it's like different experiences to everyone on the panel as well. So at A level, I did a kind of random mix of subjects actually. So I did psychology, maths, and history. And it was kind of just because I liked a bit of everything. I wanted to keep the sciences, I wanted to keep maths, and I liked the essays as well. And I do think that actually helps with kind of study skills now as well. So that's a good thing. And I wouldn't worry too much if you do have a random mix of subjects because it actually helped me decide what I wanted to study at university. So now I am going into my second year studying history at UCL. Which is University College London. So it's quite a different experience, I think, studying at uni in London. And I think people kind of have an impression that the societies may be quite disparate and nothing really is kind of the campusy feel. But I'm kind of here to dispel that myth because it really is and different to that. And the societies are really together, and it's a kind of really good way to get involved with things. So at secondary school and during my A levels, I was part of the OMS in the same year as Gadiel, and then I did my social impact internships last year as well, which was really good. And I think actually that was probably the main thing that my school did encourage us to do was kind of join societies like that outside of stuff. But at secondary school, aside from that, there wasn't really any kind of formal societies. I was part of a language club, but as we got older, attendance tended to be very low. But what I think you should all look forward to when you do join uni is that at university, the societies are all much bigger and much better. And there's such a wider range of things that you can do. And this is true of all universities, I think, compared to secondary schools. Even if your school has got like a good sports team or whatever, at your uni, there'll probably be 4 teams of that sport or whatever. So it is so much bigger because there's just more students, so it's much more feasible. So in terms of what societies there are, I can give you some ideas. So some of my friends joined Bubble Tea Society, which I thought was quite random, and also Ultimate Frisbee Society. So those ones are some pretty cool ones. And I think you should have a look and kind of try something that maybe you haven't thought about before, because there definitely will be a society for it. I know there's other universities have like cheese society and things like that, so do have a look out and on the university website for what societies there are. It'll probably be on your university's union website where I'd have a look before you start. That's a top tip there. In terms of other more practical societies, I definitely recommend joining one, especially if you're starting to think about kind of your career. So there's like finance, real estate, and I would join one of those if you are starting to think about internships for the next year and stuff like that. Those can be really useful to kind of present you with opportunities and not a lot of effort necessarily involved, just kind of attending some webinars or some lectures as well might be quite nice alongside your academics. In terms of my personal experience with societies, I personally joined musical theatre society, dance, law for all, history, and cheerleading. So I joined quite a few to start with. And then I think another top tip is kind of join as many as you like at the start. And then as you go on, you'll see what's feasible with your timetable, like your university timetable, and also which ones you just enjoy being the most involved with. I think the last year, as ever with everything, was obviously quite different to any other year of societies. But actually, I found joining societies online was some of the ways I met some of my best friends now. So like we met online, like through the webinars, or like there were kind of quiz nights online that we did, and then we'd meet up for a coffee, because you could meet up in the smaller group, you just couldn't meet like up in a big random group last year. So societies are a really good way to meet people, especially if you're kind of scared of big crowds or whatever. You kind of find like-minded people in societies like that. And in terms of kind of how to get involved, go to Freshers Fair. I think that's the best thing. Even if it's COVID rules changed, it will be online, and you can kind of get a taster for everything. So I know that like with the societies I'm involved in now, we're planning like a cheer showcase. History Society is planning lots of welcome events and stuff. So definitely go to your Freshers Fair, because it will just be good. And you might get even freebies if it is in person. You might get a lot of pens and tote bags and things like that. So just go along for that, if nothing else. In terms of getting involved with the running of societies, I actually did that straight away. So I became Freshers Rep for History Society as soon as I joined. And I actually think if you can, do that, because it meant that I could speak to people in other year groups and kind of see what they thought about history, especially because it was history of society, see what they thought about like their teachers and stuff, get tips on choosing modules for the next year. So it's a really nice way to mix with people that just aren't just freshers as well, like they're in second and third year and a lot more experienced than you will be in your first weeks of uni. In terms of my personal experience of what I will be doing in the committees for next year, so I'm going to be treasurer for History Society, which I think is a really good experience for like kind of transferable skills for CV. So it's a good example of what someone might want to do if they want to go into finance, but don't necessarily want to join the finance society. You could be treasurer for another society that you find interesting, and this involves like managing the budget for events, making sure you get sponsorships and things like that. So for example, I'm in talks with some law firms to get sponsorships for our societies and our History Society and our events, which I think is giving me a lot of transferable skills, because it can prove quite difficult to get people to give you money at times. So I think it's definitely a skill in negotiating. And then the other thing that I'll be doing is social sec for Cheerleading Society, which will involve organising club nights on Wednesdays, but also making sure that we cater for people that are like less likely to go clubbing, and kind of other events as well. So it's a brilliant way to meet people. So I definitely recommend getting involved with the committees. And in terms of other top tips, I would say, I know I've said a lot and there's loads of societies and they're big ones, but try not to be overwhelmed. Everyone's in the same position. If you feel like as I know that in my first few weeks of uni, I felt like I had to be out at events the whole time. That's not true. Just pick a few that you find really interesting and everything will work out fine. So just maybe pick 1 or 2 societies that you want to go along to, and you might find more as you go along. Get involved with the committee. Try to join one practical society so you're kind of doing something for yourself at uni. And yeah, all of these have transferable skills that you can talk about on your CV. So it's a brilliant way to kind of look towards your future in a fun way. So yeah, that's all from me.
Great, thank you for that, Harriet. Yeah, that was a really really good overview of like what societies are like and how you can get involved with those. So yeah, no, thank you for that. And just a reminder to everyone watching, if you have any questions for our speakers, just feel free to put them in the YouTube live chat. And once we've kind of gone through everyone, there'll be time at the end for a Q&A. So feel free to do that as we go along. Moving on to our next panelist is Aryaman, who's going to talk a bit about the cultural shift at university and what it's like adapting from kind of a school environment to a uni one. So over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Aryaman. I study economics at the University of Manchester, and for my A levels I did maths, biology, chemistry, and I did a further maths AS as well. So like Osman said, I'd be talking about the shift from school to university. Obviously, you know, the first big thing that happens at university is Freshers Week. You know, it's a great way to meet new people and get to know the place, whether it's like a city or a, you know, middle of nowhere, wherever it is. It's a great way to just, I guess, get into university life. Freshers Week is just one big party, right? It's packed with events. You can do, you know, even if you're not into clubbing, there are events for you. There is going to be something that is catered towards you, be it university centered, organized by your halls or like clubs, venues, etc. The good thing about this year is, you know, it's not going to be online events, so hopefully, you know, everyone has a bit of fun. But yeah, even if you're not into freshers events or whatever, another great way to meet people is just in your halls. I find that a lot of people make friends that way, just with their neighbors. And a good thing is if the university you go to has a catered hall, that's sort of like forcing yourself to be friends with other people because you're all going to be eating together at one table. So it's like a great way to meet people. Other than that, moving on to like the biggest changes that most people usually experience is the sheer level of responsibility on you. So, you know, from school, everything's given to you. Your teachers are there to sort of guide you all the time. And, you know, like previously mentioned, there aren't that many people in a classroom in school, right? But at university, there are like 10,000s of people. So it's really difficult to sort of get a direction from yourself. So I think that's one of the big changes, because unlike school where everything is given, you know, you steer your degree and what you'll be doing at university, and you're completely responsible for whatever you're going to do. Be that, you know, decide what to eat, what career path to take, you know, all aspects of life. Basically, university is like a trial version of adult life. And then it's like a good buffer. And, you know, there's plenty of support to help you with that. So at Manchester, we have like academic advisors, basically, you know, your professors or your tutors who are there to answer any kind of academic related questions or anything about university life as well. And then you mostly have peer mentors as well, which are people from the year above. They're there to sort of help you with anything, really. And at the same time, you also have support for your career. You know, you have career services, they help you with interviews, they help you with your applications, really get you up to speed so that you're making the most out of your time at uni. And there's so much support, you know, everywhere. And the thing is, everyone really likes what they do at university, right? So if you want to talk about your subject, your professors aren't going to have an issue because they study that subject, they love it. And, you know, everyone's open, everyone's new there. for first years. So it's just a great environment to, I guess, grow out of like the school mentality and into a much wider horizon. And finally, some advice that I'd give is try and speak to as many people as you can who are going to go to the uni you'll be going to in September or who are already there. The best way to find out about things is just speaking to people, whether it be career related, what modules to pick at university, and societies, etc. Whatever it is, the best place to get information is just speaking to other people and just getting to know everyone. So yeah, that's all from me.
Great. No, thank you for that. That was a good overview of like what that change is like. And you mentioned as well the areas of support you can go to, so like your personal tutor and your kind of career advisors as well, which I think is a really important point that you mentioned there. So yeah, thank you for that bit. Move on now to Thomas, who's going to talk a bit about kind of building on what Ariman said about kind of careers and how you can explore that in a bit more detail with other opportunities as well. So over to you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot, Osman. And yes, thank you for mentioning careers, Ivan. That's a nice sort of segue into my section. So I'll introduce myself first. My name's Thomas. I was on the OMS on the 2018 programme now, feels like a lifetime ago, with Osman and actually very closely with Ayman. We shared a mentor. I studied maths, further maths and physics at A-level, which unlike Harriet is not a diverse range of subjects, and then decided to go a slightly different route and do economics at university. And I do that at the University of Warwick, about to enter my final year. Absolutely love it. Was the best decision I made, even though it was one that I made on a bit of a whim. But yeah, so the OMS really helped prepare me for university. You learn some great transferable skills when you do the OMS, from, tracking your own learning, doing some independent study, things that really do come in handy for the OMS. And then last summer, I did the social impact internship where I did data analytics, and I'll talk a bit more to that in a bit. So I'm going to talk to you mostly about opportunities, and that relates mostly to, in my case, the financial services industry. So I've just come off, literally on Friday, a 9-week internship in investment banking. Was something I really didn't have a career plan going into university. It's something that I've just sort of come across. Warwick very much are into this, but all universities at this kind of level, Manchester, UCL, the Russell Group, are very big on careers opportunities. If you go out and seek them, they're there, they're in plain sight. Definitely exploit those opportunities while you can. The firm I interned at, I came across first at a careers fair in first term. Why was I at the careers fair? Because I heard there was a load of banks giving away freebies, which probably isn't a great motivation, but I came out with a load of nice pens and a nice mug and stuff. So, if you go to a careers fair, if nothing else, you'll get a load of nice free stuff. But I actually got talking to a load of these firms, and I thought, do you know what? This is actually super, super interesting, especially, at that first stage. The thing that endeared itself to me was pure investment banking, the mergers and acquisitions side. I thought, God, you can work in a sector team, for example. So this summer I was in a utilities team, and you're working on these huge hundreds of millions or even billions of pound transactions that shape the future of an industry in many ways. And so I thought, I need to delve a bit more into this, and societies very much help with this. Harriet did mention that you don't need to join the Finance Society for CVs and skills and stuff, and I would 100% back that up. Society experience is great. It literally does not matter what the society is. If it's, as Harriet mentioned, Cheese Society, if it's a sports club, or in my case, I did actually join the Finance Society. If you've got some kind of role where you're running stuff, you're developing transferable skills, that's the key thing. I just joined the Finance Society at first because I really didn't know anything about the industry, and I just wanted to find out more. And it turns out that, since joining that, I became a really active member in my first year, and then joined the executive committee in a marketing role in second year. I've just found a load of people that I really, really like as well. I've met a lot of great friends through it. The society runs a lot of social events, and that's been fantastic. But they've also run a load of events that have kind of stoked my interest. And if you do want to get into careers like, for example, finance or law or consultancy, it is quite important to start looking and browsing early on. You don't need to make any decisions, but there's loads of, for example, great insight programs in your first year. The key example would be in banking or Big Four accounting or something like that. They run programs called Spring Weeks, which you can start applying for basically from the August before you start university. So about now, some of the firms are opening for the incoming first years, but applications run until about February, although of course applying earlier is always preferable, but no rush. And I think law firms also run similar things. And any experience is good experience in this case. I applied to a few spring weeks, and that was really, really helpful, kind of helped me get a bit more of an insight into the industry and affirmed for me that, yes, I did want to look further in investment banking. In terms of sort of services offered by universities, all unis will have a central careers service. Make the most of it, exploit it every opportunity. The way I see it, I'm a cheapskate. I'm paying my university fees. I'm going to get the most out of it. So get them to check your CV, check your cover letter. But even more than that, I'd say the most useful resource you have if you're applying to internships and grad schemes are students who are in the year above you. Because if nobody, the careers service will know the general outline of how these things work, but nobody knows, firms' processes better than people who've been through the application cycle a year before you, because that's the most kind of up to date. And these things do change year on year. So definitely, if you're looking to, for example, let's say you're interested in applying to a summer internship at, very generically, Goldman Sachs, I would thoroughly recommend to all that at some point you get yourself LinkedIn. You don't need to build out your profile much, but definitely if you want to network with people, and networking is definitely key for these opportunities, you can filter on the search bar. You can say, University of Warwick, Goldman Sachs, you can put that in as a filter and then find someone who's done the internship a year before. And 9 times out of 10, these people will be super duper helpful and will help you out, give you tips and tricks, because, every single role that you apply for will be slightly different. So that's a big tip from me. Network as much as possible. I didn't get LinkedIn until very late, and I kind of regretted it. You can ignore, there's a lot of sort of Ponzi boasting posts on LinkedIn. Ignore those, just use it for networking with people who are actually there to help. And there's plenty of them out there. In terms of other networking opportunities, and again, networking opportunities, not only great for, tips for the careers, but these people can tell you honestly what a certain job is like. They're not going to fluff it out like a kind of campus recruiter might, it's all, dandelions and daisies. They're going to tell you it how it is, and you can then, make a judgment whether it's for you. There's a lot of virtual networking events that are run nowadays as a result of COVID, and I think a lot of these will continue. Internship Experience UK was one that stood out to me. I think Osman might have done this also. This is a program that's run each summer by Bright Network, fantastic company, where you get to sort of get you get to dip your toe into a certain sector. It's a really short application form. It's all run virtually, and you get to speak to professionals from different firms and find out whether you like it. There's also a load of other firms that run, for example, there's a firm called Stafford Long that run really great diversity networking events, inside and out for investment banking. They run one for law, one for other sort of city firms like private equity. So certainly look those up if you're from a diverse background. And also just generally, if you're looking to find out things about an actual sector, then your university's society for that sector, and I guarantee there will be one, whether it's accounting or law or banking, whatever it is, just go along to an event. You don't have to go to all the events, just go to one or two, get yourself an insight, think, yeah, this is what I like, or yeah, this is really boring, I don't want to do this ever again. It's really a case of there's so many opportunities and societies of people who are super passionate at every university in the Russell Group that you can definitely find the knowledge there to help you make a judgment as to what might be the right next step for you. In terms of the other sort of pillar of what's important when getting an internship or graduating, the other top tip I would give is to brush up on your commercial awareness. This is a term that's sort of thrown around quite a lot, but again, your university will be able to help you with this, and societies definitely. This is basically just making sure you're up to date or relatively up to date with things that are going on in, the industry that you're interested in. You don't have to read a copy of The Economist every week, back to back. You don't have to read an entire Financial Times. Don't spend your entire university life doing that, my goodness. Some sort of resources I would recommend that I really like. The Financial Times news briefing is a like 10-15 minute podcast I sometimes listen to in the mornings. Gives you a quick rundown of the news. Just keep up to date with the BBC News. Bright Network, again, this is not a Bright Network plug, I promise, but you can sign up to an email blast from them. I think it's weekly, and that's a really great way of getting some quick news snippets. And the other really great general commercial awareness and sort of careers advice channel I would mention is and this is pretty specific, but the Oxford Guild, who are, I think, the largest society at Oxford. They run a series of commercial awareness workshops. They're every 2 weeks for it's an hour each time, and it's a webinar thing. You can watch it on YouTube or through the Oxford Guild Facebook page. Anyone can join. You can ask questions through the Google form, and it's with a bloke called Gwyn Day. He's a sort of really well-renowned careers coach. If you pay for his full services, it costs you thousands and thousands of pounds, but he offers this workshop for free every 2 weeks. And I would say that's one of the best ways of getting your commercial awareness sort of up and going. And you'll hear a lot about these sort of things from universities, because the Oxford Guild, they partner with Warwick Finance Societies, they partner with EFS at UCL, they partner with a load of the different societies as well. So you'll be introduced to these opportunities. So yeah, and the other sort of main thing I would say to sort of connect with those older students, as I mentioned earlier, join as many sort of group chats as you can. I'm sure a lot of you have joined them pre-university if you haven't started already, and just talk to as many people as you can. The more people you talk to, the more you'll find out about what people have been up to, what kind of events they've been to, what sort of career experience they've got, and that's when you kind of, you know, run into the people and you think who are in an industry, and suddenly you have that light bulb moment and you think, that's really, really interesting, I'd like to do that. But yeah, and should have mentioned I've got a big list of points here, sorry if I'm rambling a bit, but the social impact internship, super helpful. The sort of data analytics side that I did, that was quite helpful actually on my internship. And then as part of the internship, I was given a mentor, a really, really nice bloke called Tom, who worked in real estate private equity, and he had an intern at the time, really, really clever chap called Constantine. Constantine he was a Harvard graduate, unbelievably, and he was about to start on a full-time analyst program at Goldman Sachs in Wall Street, which for those of you who don't know investment banking, that's about as sort of lofty and prestigious as you can get. And the two of them were so helpful. They helped me with my cover letters, they helped me with interview prep, they actually ran a mock interview for me, and just were great in terms of getting me in with the kind of industry knowledge that I needed going into the final round interviews for internships, which tend to be a sort of a bit longer and a bit more detailed. So I thoroughly recommend the social impact internship for the skills you develop on it, and also the mentorship that you get. But yeah, that's all I've got written down. So I hope that's been helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Thomas. That was really a good overview of like the kind of things you can get involved with at university and how they can kind of help you think about your career plans, because you might not have a solid kind of idea of what you want to do afterwards, but university is a good chance to explore your options really while you're in that environment with a lot of support channels. So yeah, no, thank you for that. We're going to move now into kind of the Q&A format. So I'm going to kind of start with some questions, but if you're watching along, feel free to put them in the kind of the YouTube live chat, and we'll come to your questions as well. And these will be open to kind of all the panelists as well. So you can either address it to someone specific who mentioned something you want to know more about, or feel free to address it to everyone. But the questions I'm going to give are kind of open to all the panelists. So feel free to come off mute if you have an answer. So I guess the first question I had that I think others might have, or conceptions they might have, is what are some of the kind of common misconceptions that people have about the first year of university? So I guess think back to when you were in kind of year 13, year 12, what were you thinking? And then how do you think some of those misconceptions can be addressed to people who then do go to university and actually experience that? So I'll open that up to anyone, but that's kind of the first question that I had.
I've got a couple of points I can say to this actually. The first one, I did think, and I think this is a very British thing in many ways, that everyone thinks that university in the UK is basically just a cathedral to getting drunk the whole time. And while it is true that a lot of people do consume alcohol, there is absolutely like swathes of opportunities, including in Freshers Week, to have like unbelievable amount of fun without touching, you know, a drop of beer or a glass of wine, anything like that. Between like, there was, I mean, sports clubs, they run like, they sometimes they're called sober socials, but you know, you get sort of mini golf, paintballing, bowling. There's so many things that societies run, you know, through Freshers Week and through the entire of university that are a lot of fun without needing to drink. And I think that's super important because, I mean, for example, I'm living this coming year with two girls who don't drink. They've never drunk for religious reasons, and they absolutely love university. I had a great time in Freshers Week. They had a great time in first year. They never felt pressured in any way to you know, consume alcohol. So that would be the sort of one, you know, from a sort of general perspective. And then the other thing, I think when you're going to a university, maybe this is even more applicable to Oxford and Cambridge, but certainly I felt it at Warwick, and I think a lot of the top Russell Group unis, there's the kind of imposter syndrome that you think, oh God, you know, I'm not good enough for this. I'm not cut out for these kind of, you know, I'm in a place with world-class professors, blah, 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 blah. Everybody feels it. If you're not feeling it, then it's probably not normal. You're all in the same boat. If you support each other, if you speak to anyone else, you'll find that everyone feels the same way. So try not to worry about it. Don't compare yourself to others. And the reason you are always remember this, the reason you're at that university is because you got there. You know, the university wouldn't have let you in if they didn't think you were capable of doing really well on their degree course. So I think that's something that's really important to remember.
Great, thank you for that, Thomas. Does anyone else want to come in on this, their own personal experience?
Yeah, I will on this one. I think another common misconception is that while uni is fun, there's a conception that everyone's just having a great time the whole time. And I think maybe this is just like generally as well, but people do struggle at university. And I think especially in Freshers Week, I just assumed that everyone else was having the best time ever, and I was the only one feeling a bit like, oh my God, I'm a bit out my depth here. When actually, I think that a lot of people are feeling like that, and it is a time where it's like kind of you're in a new city without your parents, probably for the first time, like living without your parents probably for the first time, and it is scary. And it's good to be scared because it means that you care and that you're kind of excited, scared as well. But yeah, I think it's easy to believe that everyone is having an amazing time because that's what they're posting, that's what they're saying to you guys, but everyone's in the same position. No one knows anybody. Everybody's scared they're not going to find friends to hang around with. Everyone's feeling a little bit lonely. So don't fall into the conception that you're the only one not having the best time ever.
Yeah, no, there's some good advice there and reflection. So no, thank you for that, Harriet. So we've had a few questions in from our audience now, so I'm just going to go through them as they kind of come down. First question is from Olivia, and it's directed to Thomas. It's about advice for maths and physics A-level. So do you have any advice on how to kind of do well in those subjects? Olivia said she's aiming to get an A in both. Do you have any advice for kind of doing that? And I guess while you're talking about that, you can also talk about kind of how the subject would differ at university and that kind of thing. So
yeah, sure. Thank you for your question, Olivia. I can't see you because I think we can only see the panelists on our screen. But yeah, thank you very much for your question. Maths and physics, you know, notoriously tough A-levels, but one, I've taken them on because they are super useful going forward, regardless of what you study at university. In terms of physics, I revised for physics A-level pretty much the same way I revised for physics GCSE. Which, I mean, different things work for different people. I made a flashcard set for every single topic, made it super structured, make sure I'd like covered the whole textbook and each of the you know, the sections in the specification. And I got my my long-suffering mother to test me on the actual content, because the content is obviously quite a big part of physics, especially in topics like nuclear. And I mean, I don't know what specification you do, I suppose it differs between them, but nuclear was definitely one for me that was very content heavy. The other key part for physics is practice, and you will actually find with your physics and your maths A-level that especially when you get to mechanics calculations, there's a lot of overlap, and they're quite tough at first. I remember there was this one question that we always got shown by our physics teacher, which was this sort of weird moments question with a basketball hoop that was kind of jaunty, and we got asked this question a load of times, and by the end we were all masters of it. But you know, it is practice. practice your, especially those mechanics questions where you've got trigonometry involved, because they will be the ones where the examiners try and catch you out, from what I can remember. In terms of maths, again, it does sound really dull, but I mean, it really is a case of know your formulas, especially the ones that are, make sure you know what's on the formula sheet and what's not, and spend time reading over the ones that aren't. That's key. Most of the ones you know that are hard to remember, especially those sort of pesky derivatives that you do towards the end and integrals that you do towards the end of maths A level, are generally given in the formula booklet. Practice moving your calculator from radians into degrees, because you will not believe how many marks are lost every year because people do their calculations in the wrong type of angle. And just if there's something you're struggling on, I don't know when we had, what was the specification I was on, Edexcel, they had sort of review exercises and mixed exercises in the back of the book. And if you've not done questions, always make sure you can do the most difficult questions in every chapter, because what I found is that generally the most difficult questions in every chapter were more difficult than the questions that came up on the exam for that topic. So if you can do those most difficult questions in the review and the mixed exercises for each chapter, you're on the way to your A. Make sure you use the work solutions that are given. We have work solutions in the textbook. I hope your, whatever specification you're on, the textbook has the same. And always, just the best thing you can do is get somebody to explain it to you if you can't. It sounds incredibly simple, but sometimes just having someone else talk you through a problem. If you've stared at a work solution for hours on end and you think, oh, my eyes are falling out, I can't work this out at all, get somebody else to explain it to you. Maybe they've got a different method that'll work for you, or just a different way of wording it, and that might stick with you. So yeah, practice, know your formulas, and always, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great, thank you there, Thomas. Yeah, some good advice for kind of revising A level there. That's very good. Next question I want to come to is around kind of the setting of university. So kind of what is life like at a kind of city university? So one of the questions is asked about the University of London, but I think we can also go to Ariaman if you want to talk about Manchester University, which is a city university, and what that kind of is like when you don't have, I guess, a central campus there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really enjoy about Manchester being a city university is how lively it is. It's not as big as London, but you definitely have that sense of there's always something going on. There's so many different things to do. Like you're never bored, basically. There are a lot of leisurely activities, and another good thing is, career-wise, you have company headquarters there. So if you ever want to just go have a chat with them, that's also possible. But other than that, I wanted to go to a city university because of these reasons, and additionally also because I feel like they attract international students a lot. So it's like you have people from all over the world. You're bound to meet people like you, and who you're going to be friends with, and eventually that broadens your horizons. You learn a lot, and it's definitely a very good experience, because coming from like a small town, there isn't much diversity or anything like that. But then you go to like a city, and like your life just changes because it's so different. There's access to things very easy. It's very lively, and yeah, it's just if you're someone who enjoys a big city, then you will definitely enjoy university in a big city, because it does matter. No matter how good the university might be, you also have to love the place that you're going to live for the next 3 years. It's quite important.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a good point. I suppose on kind of the flip side to that question, I want to come to you, Gadiel, and ask about kind of what Warwick is like as a campus university. I know obviously the last year has been online, but kind of when you went on the open day and experienced it, what was that like? And also, how do you kind of anticipate your kind of second year is going to be like when hopefully more stuff is in person?
I think one of the things I like about having a campus is that everyone you really see is in your year, like especially because I think one thing that was good is that because of COVID, everyone around was basically first years. So it was a really good opportunity to meet people. And even when I went on the open day, it's nice just seeing a lot of university students about as you walk about campus. And in my opinion, I think it's quite a beautiful campus. I think it was around the maths area. That's quite nice as well. Of course, I think the Lord, but I don't know how to say the name, but there's this really nice building with nice cars, and yeah, it's a really nice campus. And I guess when we go back next year, seeing more of the different rooms and buildings that are available to us as students will be good to see as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to Warwick campus as well. I think, yeah, it's it's almost like a mini town where, you know, you can meet people from all across the world, which I think is one of the things about a campus uni as well. So yeah, no, thank you for answering that. Coming on to the next question now, which is more about, I guess, the study side. So I'll come to Harriet on this one. And it's about kind of history at degree level versus A level. So I guess what do you think the main differences are when you're kind of moving from secondary to university, studying history, and how do you think someone can kind of prepare for that change as well? So
yeah, so this will differ slightly depending on what university you choose and kind of the course content and the way they assess you. So I would recommend like having a look at that before you start at your chosen university and before you choose your unis as well. In terms of kind of how it differs, well, UCL have done something quite nice this year. It was because of COVID, but they've actually decided they're going to keep it. And instead of having 3-hour exams, they now have exams from Monday to Friday. So you'll get given an essay on a Monday and you'll have to hand it back in on a Friday, and that's your exam. And the reason that that is nice and differs from A level is that you don't have to memorize any dates or anything like that. It's open book. So what it actually is assessing is your ability to write a good argument and your essay and know your historiography, so like all your authors really, really well. So I think that is the main difference, is that at A level you can kind of learn a formula for essays. Definitely, I think we learned PIL, like to begin with, your paragraph structure, and obviously you've got the OMS ones with like disc parallel and things like that. That is so good for A level, like it should be your go-to. At university that differs slightly in that disc parallel is still good for forming your argument, but you need to develop your own argument and kind of where that falls within the historiography of everything and kind of whether you agree with certain people or not. So basically it's based developing your own thoughts about history rather than just learning the history, which you do in your sessions as well, but that's where a lot of the independent learning comes in, and there is a lot more reading. When people say like, oh, I read history at university instead of I study, I didn't really understand what that meant until I came to university and I realized that there is a lot of reading, especially if you do an arts degree. It's not to scare you, but just be prepared that you will do a lot of reading. And before we move on, I was just going to add to the question about city universities as well, in that I think the question in the chat said something about London specifically, and I think people are really worried that London's very, very expensive. And I'm not going to lie to you, it is expensive, but coming from like a working class background, it isn't like, it is doable and you can survive and you can have a really good time with a small part-time job, which is what I do. I like work 10 hours a week, and I have a good budget and have a maintenance loan, but even without that there is ways to do it. So I wouldn't be put off going to a London university if it appeals to you just because of money reasons. There are a lot of bursaries and things to help you. So even though London's expensive, it's not too expensive for you. So please don't let that put you off entirely. But yeah.
No, thank you for that. And some good points you raise about history, and a lot of reading definitely is something that I can justify as well. So that's good. Next question is around, I guess, two questions that I'm kind of going to merge into one, which is about, first one is kind of about how do you avoid getting stressed in year 13 about kind of reaching your top universities, and then a kind of follow-up, which I think leads on quite nicely, is about how do you balance kind of everything you're supposed to be doing in year 13 with regards to like studying and and kind of the stuff you're involved with. How do you balance that with applying for universities and doing that kind of course research? So yeah, I'll leave this open to the floor if anyone wants to kind of take this one up first, just about kind of year 13 and how you manage that university application process.
I can go, because I actually was really stressed in my term of year 13, like the first term, and there are a lot of things I wish I'd done differently. So obviously I did an Oxford application, which involves taking an admissions test and interviews and stuff. And I also had history A level, which my coursework. So there was 1 week in December where I had my Oxford interview, my coursework was due, and I also had mock exams for my A levels. So it was a very, very stressful week. And what I'd say to you is that while everything is important, and I think it's important you kind of take time to reflect on what priorities you need, kind of take half an hour a day to make a list, prioritize, set goals for yourself, because that really helps. Even when you're stressed, take the time to do that. I also think that it's important to remember that everyone is in the same position with applying and stuff. Obviously, Oxford and medicine applications are slightly different, but it is doable. And I think you just, I was also working retail at the time. So I was working 12 hours a week in a part-time job. So it was kind of just setting priorities. And I think if you know what you've got to do, it's a lot easier to do it. So for example, I got to a point with my maths A level where I had no idea what exercises had been set in the book, where we were with it. And so I got my folders sorted, and that made me so much less stressed. So I think just kind of making lists, organizing yourself can help a lot with time management and being less stressed. Is my top tips. But also remember, it is a stressful time, and it is okay to be stressed, and kind of let that out as well. Don't bottle it all up as well.
Yeah, no, that's some good points, Ed. Does anyone else want to come in on this? I feel like this is quite a big subject, so you can kind of look at it from a lot of different perspectives. Yeah, Gadio, I see you've come off mute.
I think same as Harriet, I wish I would have done quite a few things differently. But one thing I did see, I know one of my friends did, is when they were applying for uni, they had like a Google sheet that they set up with the different unis, what they liked about it. And it sort of like helped you to remember and keep things on track when you're applying for uni and deciding which 5 choices you're going to have. And another thing I'd say is if you do need help, ask for help, because like your teachers, especially at school, they will help you. And for example, I know in my school they had a lot of help sessions, so don't be afraid to use them if you know that maybe when you get back home you might not have as much time. Or for me, I had long journeys home from my school, so I would definitely do a lot of work in school, and then when I came back home later, I'd relax. But another thing I'd also suggest is also give you time to like relax. Don't just overwork yourself, because you won't be working at your best as well. So that's another thing. So yeah, and yeah, so talk to people, make sure you relax, and just that Google sheet as well. That was very helpful in keeping track of the different unis you've been to and the open days. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Spreadsheets are pretty helpful for keeping track of things. So yeah, no, it's good you mentioned that. Another question we've had that I think is quite similar to that, but it kind of looks at it from a different perspective, is how did you choose which university to study at, and do you have any tips, especially since it's difficult to visit universities in person this year? So Thomas, did you want to kind of talk about that for a little bit, about kind of, I guess it's more about the selection process and how you kind of narrow it down?
Sure. So, I mean, I was very lucky when I was visiting universities in summer 2018 that I was able to go to a lot of open days, and that did give me a good feel. I would say, I mean, for example, I know that Warwick runs quite an extensive virtual open day program where you get the talks that you would get on a normal open day. They do a kind of virtual campus tour as you would have on a normal open day. They've tried to simulate it as much as possible. So, you know, within the realms of the fact that you are sat in your pajamas in front of a computer, hopefully you can get a good feel for it. I would try and speak to people who, you know, have gone to the university before, similar to, as I said, with careers. It's always good to hear people's personal experience. You know, there was universities that I thought I liked. I spoke to people in the year above. I heard things that I thought, red flag. And so, and I think you've got to think about what your priorities are. There's obviously, it's already been touched on, there are big differences between city universities and campus universities, and I'd say there's also a third difference, which is between London universities and other universities. There's positives and negatives about all three types of unis, I would say. And it really is a case of what do you want out of your university experience. And I think you can find that out best by talking to students. That was the most that I got out of the open days, was from talking to the student ambassadors and the other people just walking around the campus. And also, I think a big part of selecting university is making sure that you're looking at the department closely. You've got to bear in mind that while the university and the place is a big part of your university experience, the department is almost like your school. That's where all your teaching, all your assessment, and you know, all control over your academic career is within your department. So, for example, I went to a couple of other universities. I really liked the uni, went to the economics talk, you know, met a few of the economics staff, and I wasn't particularly impressed. Whereas, you know, at Warwick, other unis was really impressed me with the econ department. Exeter, Birmingham, there was Manchester, they really, really impressed me with their economics departments out of the ones that I visited. And I think you've got to take that into account, because, you know, these are the people who are going to be teaching you. The guy who did the open day talk for me at Warwick, he's the head of department for economics. He's taught me econometrics all year. I was really impressed by him then. I still think he's scarily intelligent, but he's a fantastic professor. So do really pay attention to the course and the department as well. If you haven't already picked a course, as I was actually between economics and a few different combined degrees, and it was actually only when I went to the Warwick Open Day that and like heard the economics talk that I thought, yes, I would actually like to do a pure economics degree. You know, go to these talks on the virtual open days and get a feel for the different courses and think, you know, is this something I would actually like to spend 3 years doing? Because it's a big investment of time and money. So really make sure that you've spent the time looking at the departments.
Right. No, thank you for that answer, Thomas. Ariman, I want to come to you as well. Around kind of how you chose to study at the university you're studying at, and Thomas mentioned there some of the considerations, like whether it's a city one or a campus one. So I just want to ask about, you know, I guess what made you choose where you want to study, and you know, what things were you looking at as well when you went into open days and other kind of outreach events that universities did?
Yeah, I think one very important thing to do is really look at your course and its structure. Make sure it's something that you actually want to study, you know. So with economics, different universities, they have like different structures. There's BA economics, there's BSc economics. The type of content that they teach is quite different. So I had a look at the course structures, and the one at Manchester was something that I really liked. I thought that this is exactly what I want to study. So that was one of the factors. Apart from that, I think just the generic, you know, university league tables, whatever. Obviously, you know, you will be investing a lot of money into this. You'd want like a good name, you know. So that was another thing. And lastly, I would say, you know, if it's possible, you should visit the university and just have a look around. It's where you'll be spending, you know, the next 3 years of your life, 3 or 4 years. And if it's a place that you enjoy, then in a couple of days, you wouldn't even if it's like your insurance choice that you got into, you would stop caring about it. It would just, you'd start enjoying it, and it wouldn't matter that, you know, you're not going to Oxford or Cambridge, you're going to something else, because you'd be focusing on what a good time you're having, you're enjoying your course, you know, you're making the most out of it. So really have a look around, get to know the place, get to know the university if you can, get to know the professors, speak to the department that your course is under. And if, you know, you just if you have a feeling that this is where you want to be, then I don't think you need to do anything else, because then you'd already know that this is the place for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that answer. That's, yeah, it's good to kind of visit in person if you can, and see that, but also I think a virtual experience, which I think Thomas touched on briefly as well, gives you a good flavour of the content as well. So I mean, it'll depend on kind of each university, but yeah, I think that's a good way to navigate it, and I think everyone's spoken about that well. But yeah, just conscious of the time now. The session has flown by. It's 12:59 already, so I think I'll wrap it up. But thank you to everyone who was watching, and thank you for your questions as well. I think we got through all of them, but if you do have any further questions that you'd like to have answered, then feel free to drop us an email. We'll get back to you on that. I'd like to also thank our panelists as well for kind of giving up their time and sharing their insights on their university experience. And I hope this has helped you and given you a flavour of what university will be like when you kind of go through the application process and apply. So with that, I wish everyone luck with their kind of going into year 13 and dealing with the university applications. But we'll end the session there. So thank you all for attending.
Thanks, Osman, for hosting.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks, guys.